Are you familiar with the trolley problem?
Yeah, I don't know what the trolley problem.
So this is the trolley problem. It's just kind of expanding on what you're saying here. So let's say there's a trolley, right? It's on a track. It's going forward, and it recognizes that there is a person in the way, or there's three people in the way, right? And it knows that if it continues forward and runs over those three people are going to die. Tragedy.
Right.
But it has the option of swearing off of that track, in which case it'll only run over two people. So it has the option. Do I run over the three people by going straight, or do I change course to run over two people?
Right.
And how is the AI going to know what to or what not to do? So here's the question. Would you let the trolley continue on its way, or would you push the button to veer it off course where you knew it would only kill two people?
Well, two people is the lesser of the two evils.
Seems, but does that make us the killer? Does that make us a murderer by touching the button? Because there's
no good option.
There isn't.
Right.
So how does the AI make that decision of what to do? Maybe it says, okay, here's the social credit score of these people on the track. Here's the social credit score of the people that aren't on the track.
Right. These people are more of a benefit to society than not, and it does a calculation.
Yeah.
And it ends up being, well, it's like the, did you see the movie I, Robot?
Oh, yeah, Will Smith.
You know what's funny about that movie? If you read the book, and I forget who the author is, the book is like 900 pages long. The chapter, which isn't even a chapter, it's like 3 or 4 pages out of that book that discuss the revolution that took place on Earth.
Wow.
They took those 3 or 4 pages and turned it into that movie, I, Robot.
Wow.
If you read that whole book, do you know the woman that he's the computer psychologist?
That loves the robots.
Yes.
It's all in on the robots. Yeah.
So that whole book, the 900 pages, she was actually, remember how she's very analytical, very emotionalist?
Yeah.
Because in the book, they don't explain this in the book, but they don't explain this in the movie. In the book, she was actually raised by the first robots that were created as nannies. So her first nanny caretakers, because her parents were rich, but distant, raised her. So she was raised by robots. So she becomes very, emotionally unavailable. Then she becomes a robot psychiatrist. And then that whole book is taken from an interview with her.
Wow.
So it's like I interview her, and she's like 180 years old, and she's been there from the beginning of robots. And so it does this massive interview, and that's the whole book is taken from the interview with her.
Wow.
And that iRobot is like 3 pages. She mentions it for 2 or 3 pages out of the whole book. And let's talk about an exhausting, like if you weren't locked up in prison, you'd never read this book. It was horribly it was 600 pages too long. It would have been a great 300-page book. Anyway, what I was going to say is, remember, he ends up being saved, and the 2 cars go off and they're sinking, and he's screaming for the robot to save the child. And the robot it just calculates, I have a better chance of saving this human than that one. Even though that one had a 12% chance of being saved and he has a 45% chance of being saved, it made the decision, this is the one I can save. There's a better chance I can save him. This one has very little chance. But a human would say, that's a child.
Yeah.
You save the child. Fuck this dude.
Right.
He's lived his life. He's 35, 40 years old. He's had a good run. You go for this one. Even if the chances are less, you try and save the child. But the robot will never know that. So that's
gives me goosebumps
right?
just
That's a
thinking about
great
that, yeah.
That to me, that's the same thing you're saying. You're saying social credit score, but what if you're right? If a robot's on that track and says there's 3 people, I can swerve. I'm still going to take out 2 of them. Which one do I take out? Well, if the credit score was amazing of these 2 people and they were perfect, great people and they contributed to society, but one of them was a 12-year-old child, doesn't matter. I'm taking out the 2 adults.
Yeah.
You're going to save the child.
Unless you program it to
know that.
Yeah, but who's doing the programming? That's like the amount of power involved with programming these types of robots and systems and screening systems and social credit scores. I mean, unbelievable amount of power. And with great power comes great responsibility, and I don't see a lot of responsible power.
I love
people.
Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know what I'm thinking right now is that Colby and I had a long discussion where I talked 90% of the time, 95% of the time before you got here, and it was very specific. From now on, we need to just be focusing on interviewing people about crime.
Yeah.
This is not that interview. We were looking over all of our videos, and it's like, this one didn't do any good, not related to crime. This one didn't do it, not related to crime. This one did it. Like, all these ones aren't related to crime, and you and I are having this whole conversation about AI that's not necessarily related.
But, I think it's relevant because people aren't talking about this stuff yet.
Listen, I can't wait till some can't. This is a horrible thing to say, but it's true. But I shouldn't say it. Is it till some organization comes in and starts utilizing AI and really pulls off some shit? Like, that's going to be some Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible. They do stuff with the masks and different things. For the good.
Yeah.
But there's going to be some organization, and honestly, you know who it's going to be? It's going to be somebody like China, who's essentially, look, North Korea and China have organizations in the government that they're hired, and you are a full-time hacker. North Korea has an entire organization within the government of hackers that are running credit card scams on Europeans and Americans. So they are buying dumps of information. They're ordering stuff. They're putting money on cards. They have people in the United States that cash them out and send the money, and they're generating billions of dollars doing this. This is just, keep in mind, that whole country is it's a criminal organization, obviously, but they're like, they're starving to death. Like, that regime, a portion of that regime is being propped up, other than just stealing from its own people. It's also propped up by running illegal organizations in other countries. Not to mention, like, they have super notes that are U.S. super notes, but they can only funnel so many of those in. But imagine that at some point, they're probably already using some forms of AI to come up with scams where AI is helping them. Because that's what you really need initially.
Well, because people get roped into these scams because you trigger their emotions, right?
Yeah.
And like we talked about, AI is so powerful at bringing in all this data and then putting in it, like, everything that we do is tracked.